Today, we're going to be talking about how Japan doesn't have a military, but it really has a military. This duck that they're calling a chicken is referred to as self-defense forces. Costing around $50 billion, it might not be considered a quote-unquote military, but it does put Japan in the top 10 for spending money on a military. Japan is supposedly against using nukes, right? But in 2017, it didn't sign a treaty to ban nuclear arms, and it's the 5th highest ranked country for having plutonium stored. After World War II, America was trying to force the Japanese into being non-aggressive. General Arthur McDouglas made 3 requests when they were rewriting Japan's constitution. One of these requests was banning Japan from ever being able to participate in war, even in the means of defending itself. Japan was to be protected by other countries and other countries only. This is what it started out as, but eventually was worked into a less clear, the Japanese people forever renounce war as a sovereign right of the nation. Land, sea, and air forces, as well as another war potential, will never be maintained. Article 9. But if you read it closely, Article 9 doesn't say anything about self-defense, which is now where the fun begins. In 1950, when the Americans were sent to fight in the Korean War, Japan created the National Police Reserve that consisted of 75,000, quote, troops. But since they weren't assigned to security outside of Japan, it wasn't thought of as an army. It started out as the National Police Reserve, then became National Safety Force, and was finally renamed as Self-Defense Force. It seems like they were really bending the rules as far as possible, but the US and everyone else held a blind eye. They might look like an army from the outside, but here are a few areas they are lacking in. 1. They're not able to recruit troops to enlist, so finding the right person for the job can be challenging at times. 2. They don't get ICBMs, which means you're never going to really be a world power. You can't just walk in the room and put it on the table. You're watching from the corner while the big boys play. But on the flip side, they also have a aircraft carrier that supposedly isn't an aircraft carrier. You tell me. Take a look. In theory, this could get taken out of Japan's constitution, but over the last 74 years, nothing's changed, and it's the longest constitution to have nothing change. It's not really so much of a legal issue that is preventing it from getting changed, but it's more of the Japanese having this strong cultural value. Now, as much credit as I'm sure Arthur McDouglas would like to take for making the Japanese a pacifist society, we should also take into consideration just how deadly World War II was for them, including over 3 million Japanese lives were taken. 20% of all homes, gone. So we also have to remember, that could be a pretty big contributing factor. To my knowledge, they are the only people who've ever had an actual nuke dropped on them. The other major coping mechanism for Japan was to put the blame on the military and to associate peace with prosperity as the economy thrived and living conditions improved tremendously across Japan. Across Japan, there are these museums called peace museums, and across the country, there's 76 of these, which most students have been to at least once. Let's just say some of these peace museums do a better job than others in really explaining some of the horrific things Japan did during World War II. But to be fair, I'm sure the US has hid plenty of things from our country. So even though Japan's culture and society doesn't seem to be too huge of fans of war, that still doesn't mean that they're against having the options for defense. So pacifism might not be the best word for it, as the definition of pacifism means no violence whatsoever. And since Japan has these defense forces, well, I guess it just kind of makes them like a chill group of people with a quote-unquote not military. In one recent poll, it was found only 13% of Japan's citizens would fight for their country. You see, it's only 13% because Japan's society and members and people in it, yes, they would like to have defense parameters or capabilities. However, they don't want to be fighting. And the other side of the government is saying like, well, we've been pretty much stagnant on what we've been doing with our military, quote unquote military. And if we're just doing this, our enemies are exponentially growing theirs, that might not put us in a good spot and not be able to defend ourselves. Which, that seems like it could be a valid argument too. What do you do? So, what do you think? Do you think that Japan has an army, or what do you think this is? Personally, I think it's an army. I mean, well, granted, they don't have ICBMs. They still got some pretty... it's an aircraft carrier they got. I mean, come on. It's an army. It's not nothing. Alright, guys. I hope you've enjoyed today's informational video, and I'll see you on the next one.